Well, hello and greetings on this very cold Wednesday afternoon. We are, of course, not able to meet together as we normally would on a Wednesday evening due to the icy road conditions, but I did want to take a little moment and offer a chance for us to listen to a passage of Scripture together in a devotional way. And I hope that we can use this Bible study method that I've introduced to you a time or two before called Adore, Admit, Aspire. It's a very simple method for reflecting on Scripture, and it uses these three questions to guide us. What in this passage do I adore? What does this passage prompt me to admit? And what does this passage make me aspire toward? Adore, admit, aspire. And I found that it can be a very helpful thing for us to engage in reflection on the Word of God. And so since we have been working with Philippians together on Sundays, I thought I would pick out a passage we haven't spent as much time with yet, but have already gone past in our series, and spend a little time with these 6 verses from Philippians chapter 2. So allow me to guide you through this process. Let's prepare our hearts and our minds to hear the Word of God. Philippians chapter 2, verse 12 says this: "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life, so that in the day of Christ I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. Even if I am to be poured out as a drink offering upon the sacrificial offering of your faith, I am glad and rejoice with you all. Likewise, you also should be glad and rejoice with me." Okay, so there you have our passage for today, and I wonder what part of that passage, what line, what phrase from the passage really jumped off the page for you today? Was there something in those 6 verses that really struck a chord for you in particular? And as you begin to reflect on these verses, you might also consider our first reflection question, the one that asks, what do I adore? Was there something in this passage that I loved, that comforts me, that excites me? What do I adore? Let me give you a few moments to consider. Well, one thing that I love from this passage comes from verse 13. It's the part that says that God is at work in you. God is at work in me. God is able and active and willing and wanting to work in our lives. I love that thought, that bit of truth from God's word, because you don't work on things that you've given up on. You don't work on things that are hopeless or incapable of growth or change or improvement. But in God's eyes, we are full of potential. And how great is it that the God of the universe sees us that way and is actively at work in our lives? That's one small thing from this passage that I adore. But of course, there's also a challenge attached to that very thing. The same verses also say, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, even as God is at work in you. So for this next moment of reflection, we're going to be thinking about the ways that this passage challenges us, the things that it gives us to work on as we work out our salvation. Our question now is, what does this passage prompt me to admit? Well, I wonder if you, like me, were challenged by verse 14. It's a challenging one. Do all things without grumbling or disputing, or other translations say complaining or arguing. That's an easy one to understand, but in my life, I find it to be kind of a hard one to actually put into practice in my life. And maybe you're like that too. I wonder if you could take some time today to consider yourself and ask, how well am I doing with this teaching? Is this a place that I could improve? Grumbling and arguing, complaining and disputing. Do I need to confess my shortcomings here? That I'm prone to these things? That I don't live a life where I've avoided this type of behavior? One thing's for sure, when we take this and apply it to our lives, that's when we have the opportunity to, as Philippians says, shine like stars in this world. So it matters what we do with this. In fact, whatever it is that this passage prompts you to admit, or whatever way it might challenge you, it could be verse 14 or it could be something else entirely. Whatever it is, really the most important thing is what happens next. So as we pause one final time, we're going to be asking ourselves, how do we resolve to change and seek God more closely? Our question, our final one, is, what does this passage make me aspire toward? So let's take a moment and think about that. What does this passage make you aspire toward? I'll give you just one example from myself. This passage reminds me that I do not live for myself only. So notice the part in the final two verses of this passage. Paul, in that part, describes himself in sacrificial language. He says something about being poured out like a drink offering, which is language from the Old Testament sacrificial system. But it's important to think about what he's really saying. He's being poured out not just as himself alone, an offering to God. What he says is that he's being poured out upon the sacrifice of your faith. The drink offering is something that amplifies the main offering. And so it's almost like the icing on the cake. So Paul says, my life is meant to amplify your sacrifice, Philippians. Your faith and service to God. I'm being poured out on top of that to make it that much sweeter, that much more pleasing in God's eyes. His focus is on others, making their life shine before God. And for me, I'd like to aspire to live that way too. Maybe we all can this week. I don't know what the challenge that you take with you from this passage might be, but I hope that you will take something with you and aspire toward it so that we really can shine like stars in this world. I hope that everybody stays safe and warm during this ice storm as it continues. God bless you all, and we'll hope to see you all again Sunday.